CJI 2. So last weekend was the CJI 2 event. So that's the Craig Jones Invitational Grappling event. This is the second annual CJI. There is a possibility there may not be a third based on what Craig Jones has said. We never know. We never know with Craig Jones because he's kind of a living troll. So CJI it's a grappling tournament. It is like now the number one, the premier tournament for all of Jiu-Jitsu or grappling. There's nothing quite close. There is ADCC, but the prize money and the prestige is not quite at the level of CJI. CJI has great production. They stream for free on YouTube, and yeah, it's been a big event in the grappling world. Jiu-Jitsu is kind of a new sport as far as professional sports go, so this has been quite a spectacle. This is the second annual one. So much money was given away, and if anybody that knows about the sport of Jiu-Jitsu, there is no real money in the sport of Jiu-Jitsu. Jiu-Jitsu is one of those games that you pay to do it, but very few people are going to hand over money to see you doing Jiu-Jitsu. It's just not a big thing in this sport. So I've been involved in Jiu-Jitsu for a while, and yeah, it's nothing like that really takes place as far as money changing hands. And this is an event that came in red hot with a lot of money being given out in the tournament. This year, so last year they had two tournaments. They had, well, kind of two tournaments. They had an over 80 kg and under 80 kg, and the winner from each of those received $1 million. Nicky Rodriguez, or Nicky Rod, won $1 million for the over 80 kg in 2024 in the individual competition, and Kade Ruotolo won for the under 80 kg division. Both were pretty exciting, especially on the second day. And today was, this year was pretty much the same. But what I like about CJI 2 shows the growth of the sport. It shows that it is possible that an event can be held where people can watch. I think at some point there were over 1 million people watching on the YouTube live on the second day. Now, if we're gonna break down the actual money that was being given out, we have, by my estimates, approximately $30,000 was given away to the losers. This is a rounding up because each athlete received $10,002 to show. Now, for the winners, there were the girls division, which would have been 15,000 for the losers, because 3,000, no, would have been more than that. Let me think about this. No, it'd probably be, or would that be the girls? So for the girls, you had a 4-woman division. So yeah, that would have been $30,000 given to the losers. For the guys, you had a lot more guys. I think it was 40 men. So I rounded it to completely $30,000 and $150,000 plus $100,000 for the winner of the girls division, $1 million for the winner of the men's division, which was the B team, and $1 million was also given to New Wave, who was the second place winners. But there was kind of a little bit of a confusion with the final decision, because the rounds ended up as tie. It ended up being 7-7, and the final winning decision was given based on the final match. And I don't know if everybody was clear on this rule, so somehow Craig Jones managed to gather up another $1 million to give to the second place New Wave team. So overall, approximately like probably about $3 million just given away just to the athletes alone for this 2-day tournament. So shout out to the benefactors who were able to come up with all this money on pretty short notice. Was not the original plan to give away. At least there was an extra $1 million given away. So shout out to that. Yeah, there was also substitution bonuses. I forgot. On the second day of the tournament, they came up with a bonus system for anybody who tapped the other person out. They would receive $50,000 for each tap. Victor Hugo got 2 of those. I'm trying to remember the name of the gentleman that got the other tap, but there's nothing like this in BJJ. As I mentioned before, Jiu-Jitsu is an expensive sport to pursue. You're looking at, for just training, you're looking at, for most people, at least $100 to $150 a month. And imagine that over, say, 10 years or more to get to the level of black belt or even brown belt, where you can kind of start to train on your own, or where people kind of start to train a little bit more on their own. So average, I would say about 10 years of paying this $150 a month. Now, as I mentioned before, the spoiler is B team won it all. Nicky Rod, the leader, kind of not the leader as in the coach, but the leader as in the more, I guess, he's the star because he's the one that won the $1 million last year. Victor Hugo joining the team for this tournament. I believe he did beat Nicky Rod in a match earlier this year, but they joined forces to bring the B team to this victory. 7-7. It was a strange, this year they had kind of a different format. They had a quintet format, and it started off with, on day one, with a lot of people online complaining that they thought that last year was much better, and it kind of was. And I don't think it might have been for the reason that a lot of people were saying. A lot of people were saying they just didn't like the quintet format and they didn't like the team format. And I didn't mind the team format as much because it allowed you to showcase a lot more athletes. Say 5 times as many athletes could be showcased in this, and there were even some of the athletes on the losing teams that did really well, and they were really good to see. I can't remember the name of the gentleman with the Japanese name. I should have this on hand, but I'll get that later. I do have them all written down. Now, like I said, it was a quintet format. Quintet in this format is an elimination. So they have an elimination tournament where each team has 5 players. The coach chooses the first 2 guys that go out. If one guy gets submitted, he's out, and the losing coach brings in another guy. He could choose one of his big guys or one of his little guys. Whichever team runs out of people first are automatically out. So let's say this team submits 2 guys, and then they run through everybody until there are 2 fresh guys, and this team is all out of guys, then that team loses. Unfortunately, that didn't happen very much. Now, in the case where both guys kind of neither win nor lose, or neither is submitted, it turns into a double elimination where both of those athletes are out of this round. Now that became a problem because people, I think, started to play a little bit safer, in that they would rather not lose, so they would prefer the double elimination rather than going for something risky and risk the possibility of getting caught in a submission themselves and losing. So it ended up with a lot of stalling. which is probably why a lot of people were complaining. Now they tried to change this a little bit in day two to make it a little more exciting, which I think it kind of worked, but I also think this is probably just the nature of it being the second day and guys are getting closer to the final anyways. There were also a little bit of complaining, especially from one of the loudest people online, Gordon Ryan, complained kind of about the 8-minute rounds, suggesting that this is just not enough time for a submission, and he may have a point there. But with last year's format, there were three 5-minute rounds. Now that would have made each of these matches be beyond 15 minutes. So let's say you have 3 5-minute rounds plus a break in the middle. So you're looking at 16, 17 minutes for each match rather than the 8 minutes. And if you watch day one of the tournament, it was a kind of a long day and not that interesting. I think part of it was just the length of and just how many people were competing. So I don't think that shortening or spreading out the length of each match would have made it better or more entertaining. I think it would have done the opposite. I think the main thing that I think was the problem with this tournament was the double elimination. With last year's tournament, every match had open scoring for each round. So after round 1, 2, and 3, after each round, you knew who was ahead. So going into round 3, you already knew if one person was up by 2 rounds and the guy that was down needed the submission, or you knew if they were tied and they really had to go for it, go for some domination in the third round. So I think not having this open scoring or not having a winner or a loser at the end of each match was a big it didn't work very well. I think it would have worked much better if at the end of each match they announced a winner. The reason I say this is because there already was a winner. The judges scored each of the matches, but they did not announce the winner. They kept it kind of a mystery, and the whole thing was, I guess the idea of it was that in this competition, because there was so much mystery and you didn't know what was going to happen next, we are going to keep all this mystery and keep the crowd anticipating what's going to happen and who's up ahead, and it didn't really work that well. It didn't really work. It wasn't a high anticipation thing like it was promoted to be. But I give props to Craig Jones for trying a new format and seeing something different. What he did in CJI 1 really worked very well, so well that the UFC has pretty much copied his entire format from that event and brought it into the UFC grappling or UFC BJJ. Some other ideas that I have. So I have a lot of thoughts from what I saw on the screen there. One a sec. Now, when we're talking about spreading out time, why I say that this is not great to spread out time is because longer matches are not necessarily going to be better. Sometimes guys get tired. A few years back, Gordon Ryan did go against Felipe Pena in a no time limit match, and it was really it was not exciting at all. In the end, Felipe Pena, he just tapped out due to exhaustion or maybe just not wanting to hang for any longer. I think the match had already gone something like 25 minutes where nothing was really happening. Nobody was passing anybody's guard. And I guess he just tired out, or he kind of just quit. He tapped out. There was no actual submission. He just was in the guard, or it was just a tap. It was just like, I'm done. I'm walking away. He kind of walked off in protest. He was making the signal that he wanted a drink of water, but I thought it was all kind of just not that good. And we've seen this with the UFC. When the UFC started, they started as as this no holds barred fighting spectacle with no time limit, trying to keep it as real as possible. But if you're watching just for entertainment, it's just not entertaining to know that something might have no end. And when you're trying to, especially for the UFC, when you're trying to work into like a TV schedule or even a pay-per-view schedule, there has to be a length of time for the broadcasts. You're paying people, you're paying camera people and producers and stuff to be there, and if they're not there just for the love of the martial art, they're not going to want to be there for days just because we need to see who can last the longest or who can go the longest without quitting. Valid to see who's the toughest man out there, but just not an entertaining format for a sport. And we are here just for the entertainment. Now, some of the most exciting matches from last year, we had Andrew Tackett versus Kade Ruotolo. We didn't have anything like that this year. This year, those guys, Andrew Tackett, he is signed to UFC BJJ, so he is not, I guess, allowed to compete in CJI. For the UFC might have fear of their athletes getting injured. Guys like Mikey Musumeci also cannot enter because he is also under contract with the UFC. Kade Ruotolo and Tai Ruotolo are getting ready for just more MMA matches as they transition into mixed martial arts. So some of the more exciting athletes that we would want to see were not there for this one, which happens. Gordon Ryan, who is considered the all-time greatest grappler, also is not in this tournament. He's had stomach issues, he's had gut issues, so he hasn't been well for the last few years, and he is essentially retired just because of these health issues that he has. He's also opening a school, and he also is not a fan of the organizer Craig Jones. They don't get along with each other, and they publicly beef with each other. So the chance of Gordon Ryan competing in this event were very close to zero, although his team did compete in the event, or the team that he's associated with, Kingsway or New Wave. They did have a team in the event. Now, as I mentioned, this was an elimination tournament. It was an 8-person tournament, a 2-day event. On the first day, Craig Jones, the organizer, was getting crucified because of just how, I guess, uneventful it kind of was. But I think people are looking at CJI 1 with rose-colored glasses, because I did watch CJI 1 last year as well. And although day 1 did have some good matches, it wasn't that great. I don't think it was that great. And if you look at highlights from CJI 1, most of them are going to be from day 2. Day 2, you have the quarterfinals and the finals, and you're just getting closer to the big biscuit. It was just more exciting. You also had the other events as well, like the women's match and the all-star match. So last year you had Craig Jones versus Gabby Garcia, and those were day 2 things. So I think some of the criticism that was going for day 1 not being that exciting were kind of unwarranted, because day 1 of a 2-day tournament should be by nature not as exciting as day 2. Craig Jones had also mentioned that he thought that the idea of handing out $1 million to an individual, maybe it wasn't as he didn't think it was the best way to, I guess, spread the money. He thought it was a little bit of an overkill to give each person $1 million. So decided this year it would be $1 million for the winning team. And although it doesn't have the same ring to it as $1 million for one person, what I did like about it was there were just more people and more chances of seeing different styles, different levels of excitement as people, as we had grapplers that I didn't even know. They came in and they did very well. So some of the things that I did like about the new format was the number of athletes, and I think that showcasing more athletes is a bigger win for the sport, because one of the main things that Craig Jones always calls back on is that he's just really trying to grow the sport. The CJI tournament is it's actually kind of a charity. So what they're trying to do is raise money. He builds jiu-jitsu schools in poor neighborhoods in poor countries around the world, and they try to do different things for charitable purposes. So it's not necessarily to line his pockets. I'm sure he does get paid for it as well, but his main goal, what he's trying to do, is to grow the sport. And so I think having more people is just better for that purpose. The only problem is when you have so many people is that you just have to watch more matches before you can get to the final excitement. So the process of elimination was just much longer, but like I said, it wasn't bad. And the 8-minute round, I think, was good. I just didn't think the double elimination was good. Yeah, I didn't think the double elimination was great. And even with the double elimination, had they kept the double elimination but announced a winner and a loser, I think that probably would have been a little bit better. I would have found that better. They could have also been much more aggressive with the penalty calls. So there was a lot of, because of the double elimination idea, it did lead to a lot of stalling. And I'll get to the idea of the penalties a little bit later on. Now the teams that we had were New Wave. This is the team that has the team that's associated with Gordon Ryan, but John Danaher was the coach of this. You had Dorian Oliveras, Mika Galvao, Wagner Rocha, and Giancarlo Bodini, and Luke Griffith. The Team Americas. This is, if you know about Greg Sodders, he promotes the ecological approach to jiu-jitsu, and he's kind of a controversial figure because he debates a lot of people about traditional ways of coaching and the idea that teaching a sport should not be taught through rote drilling. So he's an interesting guy. So he was the coach for the kind of American team, and these are just people from different gyms that don't, I guess they're not from a gym that's big enough, like say 10th Planet, to send their own team. It was just different American jiu-jitsu players on the team. So you had Gavin Corbet, who is one of Greg Souders' guys, DeAndre Corbet, that's his brother, Elijah Dorsey, Taylor Pearlman, and Pat Downey, who is a wrestling champion. And Greg Souders was the coach, like I said. The next team would have been Team Atos. Team Atos is Andrew Galvao's gym. Andrew Galvao has quite a big, famous gym. So you had Diego Pato, Junior Ronaldo Jr., Lucas Barbosa, Kenyon Duarte, Felipe Pena, and Andre Galvao was the coach. There was a Team Europe, which had Owen Jones. You had Powell Jaworski, Paul Ardilla, Charles Negromonte, Mason, I can't say this name, Mason Michauluazek, sorry. And the coach was Ferris Ben Lamkendem. Then you had Daisy Fresh. Daisy Fresh is another American team. Now on on Daisy Fresh, I don't even have Daisy Fresh. So you had Team Daisy Fresh. Do I have that written down? I don't think I have the members written down. I'll have to look for that. B Team. What did I do with Lazy Fresh? 1 second. Autos. Anyways, we'll go over to the B team. You had Ethan Krelliston, Joseph Chen, Chris Wojcik, Nick Rodriguez, Victor Hugo, and the coach was Nicky Ryan. Now, here's the Daisy Fresh. The Daisy Fresh roster was Max Hansen, Dante Leon, Jacob Couch, Michael Pixley, and Brandon Reed. And the coach was Heath Pedigo. The coach for B team, which I just missed, was Nicky Ryan. 10th Planet. 10th Planet, you had Geo Martinez, Alan Sanchez, PJ Barch, Alan Atkin, and Kyle Boehm. The coach was the famous Eddie Bravo. And you had the Australasia team. Australasia, I think they kind of surprised me. They did pretty well. You had Fabricio Andre, Kenta Iwamoto. He did really well. Kenta Iwamoto, Lucas Kennard, Declan Moody, and Belal Etiabari. Whoa, Belal Etiabari. And the coach of that was Lachlan Giles. Like I said, the problem with this was that the desire of each athlete to not lose was stronger than their desire to win each match, which led to very conservative jiu-jitsu. And this is coming from a guy that I am also a boring competitor. I'm not a very good competitor at all. You could see me losing left and right on the YouTubes if you look me up. But just my 2 cents is, if you don't compete to win and you're just competing to not lose, it's never going to be that entertaining, and there's just not going to be enough movement. What we're looking for is movement, anything that could lead to more movement. And if you play jiu-jitsu, you know that there's a lot of kind of intricacies that are like small places, like, do I keep my elbow outside of the knee or inside of the knee, and little things like that, which are important, but they're just not that interesting to watch. And being that I'm somebody I've trained for over 10 years, probably about 14 years of solid training, and I don't particularly enjoy watching jiu-jitsu for this reason. It's just, for the most part, it's not that interesting. Every once in a while, there are tournaments that are interesting. For example, the UFC, they do their Fight Pass invitationals, and there was an event they did, I think it was last year, where they had, I can't remember the name of the ref, but he was just calling penalties left and right, left and right. Every time there was a little bit of a stall, if somebody stalled for 5 seconds, he was throwing down penalties. And it started right at the beginning of the tournament, or right at the beginning of the day. And by the end of the day, you could see this had pushed people to be much more active. On day 2 of CJI, they did start to hand out penalties, or they started to hand out warnings for activity. And so I think this was part of what led to more activity. On day 2, they also introduced a $50,000 submission bonus. But I think we saw only maybe 3. I don't remember if it was 3 or 4 submissions on the second day. So I can't say for sure that the $50,000 actually increased the amount of submissions. It didn't seem that way, but it did possibly, I think, motivate people to be a little bit more active and to get after it a little bit more. I think the penalties or the warnings did more than just the $50,000. It's kind of like win bonuses in the UFC. I don't think anybody is going out there to not win, and I don't think that an additional 30,000 or whatever is going to really make you win if you were not going to win, or if you were not good enough to win in the first place, or if you didn't have you were not prepared to get out there and win. Yeah, not having the clear winner to me was the biggest problem in these matches. Is that you could see that there was a clear winner. So even in the final match with Nicky Rod, you could see that he was the clear winner, but there's no winner announced right at the end. It's just everybody kind of looks around and is not sure. And later, the judges just gave a score of the accumulation of all the matches for that day, which I don't think that would have been the one thing that I would have changed from the tournament. Now, from the first year, hold on. From the first year, I like the three round matches, and when we see it on the UFC grappling and also in the UFC grappling and in CJI 1, I thought the 3 rounds really did well, and it led to a lot of finishes. And I don't know if it's because, I think part of the reason why 3 rounds may lead to more finishes is because at the end of each round you're resetting, and it gives a person who might have even been in a bad position at the end of round 1, it gives them a position to start again and to get into a better position or a better chance of finding the submission. So I do like the resets that the 3 rounds provide. It gives you a little bit more time to work, but I think this always has to be combined with aggressive refereeing. There needs to be aggressive refereeing. There needs to be an aggressive just penalty. I think there has to be a lot of penalties going on, in my humble opinion. Penalties. It's just brutal. It's brutal to see somebody just laying on top of somebody else and not moving very much, which is this is Jiu-Jitsu 1-on-1, 101. If you could lay on top of somebody and control them and stop them from moving, this is like one of the main goals of the sport, but it is not a spectator sport. Jiu-Jitsu is not a spectator sport. It's a participant sport. People, even the people that are watching me, probably already are training Jiu-Jitsu, and you're into it because you're into it. It's not like MMA. Like I've never had an MMA match, but the first time I saw MMA, I thought, wow, this is incredible. And I've been after seeing Royce Gracie in the first UFC, I was hooked ever since, just because there's a lot of excitement, there's a lot of movement, you have no idea what's going to happen, you have no idea where the fight is going to go. It's just so dynamic and so fascinating, so unpredictable. I think no-gi has the potential to be never as exciting as MMA, but it could take a portion of the MMA watchers, but we need to really push for action and really push for not having any stalling. The stalling is this is the kryptonite for all jiu-jitsu, and what the main thing that will cause it to not grow. People have talked about how, the stalling in this event maybe shows that, no-gi is not necessarily better than gi, because no-gi also involves stalling. They both involve stalling. I think gi has a little bit more of this problem with, kind of like when you watch judo. If you ever watch judo, where most of the match is they're just trying to find their grip. I think with gi jiu-jitsu, although it's not as grip heavy as judo, there is just more time spent finding the grip, and there is more control when you have these long levers to grip on. The good thing about gi jiu-jitsu are there are more ways to submit somebody, but there are also more ways to slow people down in gi than in no gi. No gi is just much more slippery. Much more slippery. as I mentioned, the 50K bonus, I don't think it made that much of a difference. But overall, I thought the event was good. Let's not look at one through rose-colored glasses. Really, you got to look at day one of CJI 1 to really compare apples to apples. Now, there were also the special matches that came along with the tournament. 1 second here. Yeah, so you had the women's, you had a women's tournament with 4 women, and you also had Chael Sonnen versus Craig Jones. Hold on. Let's talk about the women's tournament first. Now, the women's tournament, you had on day 1, you had Taylor Pearman. No, sorry. Oh, I'll get to that. I'll get to the taps. The taps. Actually, you know what? Let's talk about these taps first. There were some controversial moments on day 1 with some tapping. Now, there was Wagner Rocha. He appeared to look like he had tapped his opponent with a Kimura, but they continued, and there was no real noise made about it, no complaining to the ref. So this is just, I think, regular jiu-jitsu competition. Stuff like this happens. Now, there was let me see here. There were 2 very questionable taps. The first very questionable tap was Taylor Pearman versus Giancarlo Bodoni of New Wave. So Taylor Pearman versus from Team America versus Giancarlo Bodoni. Now, if you look at it, I don't think it was a tap. He was in both of these came from leg locks, and he kind of Giancarlo Bodoni, he was in a heel hook. His foot was in a heel hook, and I think what he might have been doing was trying to bring his hand to touch the knee and maybe move the knee or decide where to move the knee, but it ended up looking like he did one tap. It ended up looking like he did one tap. What's his name? Pearman immediately let go from this one tap, and he said, you tap. Bodoni said he did not tap. They went to the replay, and they finally decided, you know what, we're going to count this as a tap. Even though, from looking at it, I don't think it was a tap, but I could see there was enough ambiguity to where, yes, I could see it being called as a tap, but I would not have called it. I personally did not see it as a tap. I didn't think it was a great call. I think after seeing the tape, it should have been deemed not a tap. I think they should have started in a neutral position because Pearman let go too early. He let go to something that wasn't a tap. He should have probably also been punished. But in the end, they gave it to him, which I understand. Bodoni should have learned a lesson. Like, this almost tap it's just a big no-no in tournaments. You know, even in tournaments, sometimes if you at the wrong time, that can be considered a tap. So you got to be very careful in just any, like, you're almost in a position where you're going to tap. I think that if he didn't tap at that moment, there's a good chance that he would have tapped. The leg lock looked tight, but it's very hard to tell with leg lock. Some people are more flexible, and they're not going to tap to certain things that you might tap to, or you may not tap to certain things that people would tap to. It's very hard to tell with submissions. People all have their own limits for how far they can allow something to bend. There's just, some people will let it break. Some people they just have very flexible ankles and knees, and it's weird. So calling a tap early or letting go of the tap early, I think both guys were at fault in this. I don't really have a problem with the call in the end. I don't think it was a great call, but I don't think it was like an egregious call, because he did kind of make the tapping motion. Now, the next one that we saw was from 10th Planet. let me see what I have. It was 10 Planet. Geo Martinez versus, I believe it was Belal Muhammad. What's his name? Let me see. Geo Martinez versus. There's no Belal Muhammad. Geo Martinez. Oh, Belal Etiabari. Sorry. Versus Belal Etiabari. So Geo Martinez, kind of a similar situation. He was in a heel hook position, and what he did though was he kind of reached back, and if you're looking from above, it would have looked like he tapped 3 times. But if you look from the side view, he kind of did like a phantom tap, tap, phantom tap. So he actually touched his foot only once, but they were not like real urgent taps, but he did make like kind of a flapping tapping motion. To me, as the ref, I would call that as a tap. On the replay, you could see maybe it was not a tap. Like there was, when you look at the replay, it's just not super clear. But because he did make the tapping motion, I saw that as he did tap. Maybe he didn't mean to tap. I think he did not mean to tap, but it looked like a tap. In the actual event, while I was watching live, I just called it as a tap right away. Then looking back at the replay, you could see where it's not so clear. You just have to be very careful when making tapping motions when you're in a locked out submission. So I think for that one, the referee called the tap. So it wasn't like his opponent just let go and then there was a controversy after. The referee called it. He kind of argued with the referee and they still just left it as a tap. I thought it was a tap, so I thought that one was a good call. So yeah. Ooh, sorry. I've had this situation before when refereeing in a women's match. One of the women, she kind of reached out to the fence and did one of these, like she was fighting the choke, and then she went out and she went. I don't know if she was going to grab the fence to try to catch balance or something like that, but to me it was like, whoa. I called it as a tap. On the replay, I could see her argument that maybe it wasn't a tap, but it was a pretty tight. I mean, it was a choke that was getting tight. They were white belts, so I don't feel super bad about it. But I mean, I could see the argument that it wasn't a tap, but in the moment, it just looked like a tap. It went from here, and then she went out like this. So I did call it as a tap. I heard the argument that it was not a tap, but for the safety of everyone involved, we just left it. We just left it as a tap. Now, there was also the women's tournament. Day one, Sarah Galvao, her match with Anna Carolina Vieira was considered the match of the day for day one in the whole entire event because you had clear victory. You had clear victory, no stalling, lots of pressure, great performance. Helena Cravar against Adele Fornarino. She won by a decision, but it was kind of a controversial decision because she was on top the whole time. A lot of people thought that Fornero was just more active on the bottom and that she should have won. And there was kind of like a lot of conspiracy theories in this whole thing that, you know, a lot of favoritism towards Helena Cravar because she's kind of this up and coming star and she's the most popular women's athlete right now in jiu-jitsu for sure. So there was that idea that she won it just based on kind of like favoritism, but either way, it was a close match, not a clear win, but she did win. And then on day two, it was Cravar versus Galvao, and also very close match, but in the end, Cravar caught Galvao in a nasty inside heel hook and she tapped, so she wins the $100,000, the most money ever given in a women's grappling event ever. So making history as the first $100,000 winner in a women's grappling event. Awesome. Now, one of the highlights of this whole thing for me was the match with Craig Jones versus Chael Sonnen. Now, originally it was supposed to be Craig Jones versus Gable Steveson. Gable Steveson is a stud wrestler who is looking to a future in MMA. A few weeks, maybe a week before the event, he posted a picture of a very bruised toe, turf toe. I don't know if it was a broken toe, but pretty badly bruised toe. He pulled out of the event. The controversy with that is he pulled out of the event with this injury. However, he is supposed to fight in his first MMA match 2 weeks after this event that he pulled out of. Now, you could say that maybe he pulled out to save himself, or to, I guess, to not get further injured before the MMA match, but it just looked kind of funny that he pulled out of this, but he's still scheduled for something else. And a lot of the promotion going into this was about Craig Jones versus Gable Steveson. They put a lot into this promotion. Chael Sonnen stepped in his place. Craig Jones and Chael Sonnen have had a grappling match before. I think it was ADCC 2017, or Who's Number One 2017, where, as the wrestler he is, Chael Sonnen took him down. Craig Jones was able to hold him off, but there was no submission. It did not end in a submission, but Craig Jones won that match. Now, in this match, crazy is Chael Sonnen took Craig Jones down, got to side mount, and Chael Sonnen takes Craig Jones down, gets into his side mount, and Craig Jones puts him to sleep. No tap, just sleep. Puts him to sleep right away in a buggy choke. So he puts him to sleep in a buggy choke. There's he wakes up this with the what happened face, and they decide, okay, let's run it back. The crowd gets involved, and the exact same thing happens again. Chael takes him down, he gets into side mount, and Craig puts him into the buggy choke. Chael Sonnen goes to sleep, second time in a row, which was very, very crazy. Overall, I thought it was a great event. I enjoyed it, especially day two. Day two was, I thought it was pretty entertaining. Pretty ambitious to try this completely different format, and Craig Jones says that this was going to be his last match, and he's retiring, and he's going to ride off into the sunset. So let's see what happens. Maybe there'll be a CJI 3. I hope so. But overall, very entertaining event. Something that's also different this year is that the rights to streaming were with the company called Flow Grappling. Before, his team, the B team, was involved in the streaming rights. So you could still find CJI 1 still on YouTube, but for CJI 2, as of right now, it's off of YouTube. So it's streamed for free. Excuse me. It's streamed for free on YouTube, but I think by 5 o'clock the day after, they removed it from YouTube, and now it can only be accessed if you buy it from Flow Grappling. So you have to buy a membership or buy the event from Flow Grappling. So streamed for free, but it's no longer available for free. So if you have not seen it, no other way to get it unless you're going to get it illegally. But if you want to get it legally, you would have to go through Flow Grappling to look at the event. So great event. I hope it comes back next year. That's all I got to say about that. That's just my 2 cents. Like I said, the double elimination and the lack of open scoring after being spoiled by open scoring in CJI 1 was just, I didn't think that was the best format. But shout outs for trying, shout outs for just putting together such a big event. I can imagine it was a very stressful thing for Craig Jones, and him and his friend Seth, they do all the organization. So it's just a lot. I think it's just a lot of promotion work. Craig was on so many podcasts, and just he does a long media run. He really pushed to promote this event. So I think it was a success. Flow Grappling said this is the most popular stream they've ever had, and it should be, for sure, because this is such a big event in the grappling world. So shout out to Craig Jones. Shout out to the B team for winning. All the coaches. Good stuff. I hope we see more. We see more again. If you're interested, I've got these TAIPEI rash guards on sale. I got to put them in the shop. I got the shorts as well. These TAIPEI shorts. I even got some spats. This I Love Jiu-Jitsu fluorescent light with adjustable brightness. Maybe it's too bright. With adjustable brightness. I also got these. We also got these for sale. These are in the shop. Check it out. Thank you for watching. I'm Tariq Finn. This is TAIPEIBJJ. I'm also thinking of changing the name to something less regional. Thinking of bars and hooks. Hooks and bars, bars and hooks. So let me know what you think. DJ McKay, good luck with your channel. Thank you, DJ McKay. Thank you, DJ McKay. I appreciate it. Yeah, I'm thinking of changing it to maybe bars and hooks, just less regional. We've been TAIPEIBJJ for over 3 years, and I don't know. I don't know if this. I guess the regional name is limiting. Most of the viewers are in the United States, so I don't know. Just a question to put out there. Maybe maybe some change is good. I don't know if it's going to be too much of a disturbance, but thank you for the comment, DJ McKay. That's it. I have no other thoughts. Unless anybody has questions, I have no other thoughts. And yeah, man, see you later. Stay healthy. Take care.